Entitled DWP Annual Report and Accounts and Universal Credit and DWP Statistics, which is a bit of a mouthful. Obviously we haven't yet seen the accounts. I understand that those are going to be published tomorrow, but I also understand the Secretary of State that you've agreed to come back to address the committee on the wider aspects of the accounts on the 3rd of February. Can I ask you first of all to introduce yourself and your team for the record, please?
Yes, obviously I'm Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Howard Shipley, who's with me on my right, is the person who essentially is the senior reporting officer on Universal Credit. Came in from, back in July when we last came, explained to you he's come from the private sector where one of his last jobs was to deliver the Olympic Park. He came in to do that, delivered it early and under budget. David Freud, Lord Freud, is the House of Lords Minister but also Minister for Welfare Reform and deals a lot with Universal Credit. And Mike Driver is the finance officer at the department and has been involved in all of this issue around the universal credit finances, etc. And so I thought it would be useful to have him here as well.
Well, can I thank you very much for coming this afternoon. We have been trying to hold this session since I think September, initially on the statistics. The importance of the universal credit element of today's session has somehow grown in magnitude since the original intention. But if we don't mind, we'll start with the Department's use of statistics, and I intend to, we've got questions that should last about half an hour, and then we'll move on to the issues around universal credit. The two are not disconnected in any way. But can I begin by asking what you say when the UK Statistics Authority Chair said that the government statistics should be used as a torch and not a crutch, to enlighten the debate rather than to prop up a position that's already been agreed and adopted. Are you satisfied that your use of statistics is aimed at shedding light on DWP activities rather than just gaining support for policy reforms?
I am actually, and I think that this is borne out by the reality of the fact that we've published over the period that I've been there some over 500 statistical releases. We've also started the innovation of ad hoc statistical releases, which is actually we were congratulated for by UKSAA, and they said the Department for Work and Pension Statistics have established a page on the department's website to provide links to additional statistical analysis, and the authority expects all other departments not currently to do so likewise. So our relationship with the UK authorities, I think, is pretty good. We try and publish as regularly as possible. And we try and stick to the strictures that are laid for the publication of that data. And we try to sell a positive message, and I know there have been issues around some negativity with regards to sickness and disability benefits, but to try and counter that, a few months ago we started a campaign called Disability Confident, a big conference in central London, brought a lot of the groups together, also a lot of employers, about trying to get them to understand what are the needs of disabled people in employment, to try and counter any kind of negative messages, and that's rolling out around the countryside at the moment, so that backs up some of the use of statistics. It's true that the UK Statistics Authority is actually very critical of your department's use of statistics, said that they've actually had more complaints about your department's use of statistics than any other department yes,
government.
But with respect, Chairman, I mean, I've had two letters. One was about something 2 years ago concerning something about the use of them on immigration, but they let that one sit. And then the last one was where we had a discussion around the use of where I referred to those going back into work on the back of the benefit cap. They said that whilst we couldn't prove that they had gone in, they couldn't prove that they hadn't, but I should therefore not make the link, other than that I believe to be the case that those people are going back into work. Hugely to do with the fact that we're introducing the cap. That's my belief, but they've said that that should remain as a flat statistic, which we've accepted. But as I said, there were 500 releases, and although they get complaints, and they will get a lot of complaints now because people want to assume that we're saying some of the things that are reported and we're not saying those things, but the reality is, my understanding is that they are very satisfied with the way that we run that, and that we are doing this in the correct way.
I have some questions coming up about specific queries around statistics, but can I just push you a wee bit more on to what extent not just the things you say, your ministers say, but the things that actually come out of the department, or indeed some of your party colleagues say, which has gone into the press around the statistics or the misuse of statistics.
Can you specify colleagues, Chairman? Who
well, I was thinking of the chairman of the Conservative Party, who used the statistic that 900,000 people had given up their claims to disability benefits before, rather than go through the test, which I think the friend Mrs. Gilmer will show. I think was a completely false statistic, but it doesn't. Those kinds of comments to the press, and I appreciate you say that you don't control editorial policy, but there certainly have been comments to the press that have conflated statistics, have not put them into context, and has actually led to a great deal of fear and alarm amongst the very people you say that you're wanting to support, those people who have disabilities.
Can I just first of all say that was made clear at the time by the Statistics Authority, that what the Central Office did with these was exactly that, was conflate them, but under no assurance from us should they have done that. We didn't actually, and have never given them that idea of those figures, and we wouldn't have done so. That was something that they put together and released themselves. In fact, I wasn't even aware that they were going out with that comment at the time. So it's not in our interest for that, because that just raises an issue about statistics, and then we have to defend ourselves again. But as I say, these were not statistics that were published by us. They'd pulled two things together and conflated them, as you say, but it's not ours. And I have had conversations with him and with others about being careful to check with the department if they're going to say something about the statistics that are out there. They should check with us that those are the statistics that can be correctly used. And there has been an element of that since then, so there's been less of that going on.
Okay, I'll bring in Sheila Gilmer as something she pursued.
Thank you, Secretary of State. In April 2013, there were statistics published about DLA claimants, and you were quoted as saying, "We've seen a rise in claims in the run-up to PIP, and you know why. They know PIP has a health check. They want to get in early." And stories to that effect were then appeared in various newspapers. But in fact, 2/3 of those new claims are from children and pensioners who wouldn't be affected by PIP. And there was actually a fall in the number of claims made by working age claimants. So would you accept now that that description, which was your description, was misleading?
Yes, but it's taken out of context, because of course it was in a conversation about why some people may or may not have continued with their claims. I wasn't referring to absolutely everybody. I was referring to specific groups. There are other reasons as well. I've always been very clear about that. And the reality is that we've not had any upheld complaint on that particular issue to us from the Stats authorities. So, if somebody wants to come and take it up with them, I'm happy to get that in full context. I don't have the exact context of the discussion of the interview, but I seem to recall that was done as part of a process of explaining why some people may not have gone ahead with their claim.
But would you accept that you achieved headlines at that stage which made it sound as if people were rushing to claim a benefit to get some advantage? That was the headline that was... Well,
I neither saw that headline, nor did I actually write any headlines. I'm not aware of any headlines on this, by the way, but you'll have to show it to me. I'm not completely aware of it. But my honest truth is that this was part of an interview and conversation, but it was in a wider context. So I have had no complaint about that before, to be fair.
Sort of further to that, ESA statistics are published and have been throughout about the number of people who are awarded the benefit both before and after appeals. And it's these statistics that are often used to make judgments about whether the benefit's working or not. In a letter dated the 2nd of November to myself from the then Disabilities Minister, it was stated that the before appeals statistics already took into account reconsideration, which is informal appeals, in fact. Does this not give a misleading impression of how many decisions are actually subsequently overturned?
Well, no, and I'm trying to remember the thing you refer to. I think if I recall correctly, we then didn't publish data on appeals because we were out of sync with the Justice Department, whose responsibility it is for that appeals process.
Can I just stop you there, because I think that's a separate point which I might also wanted to ask you about. But the point was what is counted as a before and after appeal figure. And in the figures for before appeal, which are then contrasted with the figures of after appeal, reconsiderations are counted in the before appeal figure. If a reconsideration overturns the WCA, then it surely should be added to the number of decisions that are subsequently overturned.
Well, I'm satisfied with the way it's done at the moment. As I say, if you think that there's a better way to do it, then I'm very happy to look at that. If you think genuinely this doesn't help, I'm very happy to entertain that. But I've not seen any representations on that particular point come across my desk or been advised to me by our statisticians in the department. But if you're concerned about that, I'm always happy to look at it. But as I say, I haven't seen it.
Well, I certainly think one of your ministers is clearly aware of this, since I've had some correspondence about this. I'm disappointed that you're not aware of it. And are you aware that the statistics that are published for after appeals are only for new ESA claims and not for the migration? So again, it's a partial picture that is actually being given.
Well, my view is that we publish all the data that's relevant on all of the appeals, but the appeals issue is, of course, the job of the Justice Department, because they deal with all the appeals. We extrapolate from their own data. So all the data that exists on the appeals process is actually published through the Justice Department. So anyone wanting the full and complete level of data, it sits on the Justice Department's website when published. And as a point I made earlier on, because I know you've raised this point before, we didn't publish some data on the appeals for the very simple reason that we'd got out of sync with the Justice Department. We'll be back in line with them next year, and we'll publish those figures together. But they are extrapolated from the Justice Department's own figures, and they do the work on those.
And those statistics that were missing from your October release, which I think are going to be available in January,
Yeah, they will be.
The UK Statistics Authority did comment that your department could have drawn public attention to that and given the reasons for it.
Yes, I mean, maybe if there's a criticism at all, we should perhaps have said it, but it just was simply on the basis that we were actually publishing ahead of them, and we couldn't therefore refer to their data, because it would have been wrong to have done so and would have received a rebuke from the UKSAA, the Stats Authority. So my sense on this, we did the right thing. Could we have drawn everyone's attention to it? Maybe. But the reality is that data is available eventually on the Justice Department's website, and I think it's quite important. We only extrapolate from that to put it on ours. They actually publish all of the data around appeals. So anybody who wants that could have gone to the Justice Department's website.
And would that include the separate data for the migration cases?
This is my understanding, but I'll have to check back on that, because I'm not responsible for their data.
Do you think it's appropriate that the DWP do publish that separately, since you publish some of the information?
Well, let me have a look at that. I'll go and have another look at that again. But as I say, it all comes off their database, because they are the ones publishing this data. So we publish what we think is relevant to our area, but anybody who wants to get more data can, of course, go to the Justice Department's website and pick up anything they don't find on the DWP's website.
Debbie.
Just to clarify, Minister, in terms of the statement that that Sheila made before, in connection with the remarks that were saying that there was, the surge, claiming the introduction of the new PIP abolition of with the introduction of the new PIP and the abolition of the DLA had a closing down sale effect. That was actually in the Mail on Sunday, and it was by your Minister for Employment. And then you also made a similar statement in the Daily Mail. But most importantly, Minister, I'm just concerned that you're suggesting that the conflation of data is just is a matter of conflation at Conservative Party headquarters. Is that right?
No, well, the specific case that was being referred to was, in fact, nothing to do with the department. The Conservative Research Department, or whoever actually puts that stuff together, draws it from department data. We have made this point clear to and to all my colleagues, and we vice versa accept all of this. The reality is that what we publish is the data, and it's very clear, and there should be guidance in there as to what you should and shouldn't be able to use the data for. So we've obviously discussed this matter, and I've tried to get my colleagues at Central Office to make sure that they check first before they put any statements out about the area that DWP covers, because it's complex and can sometimes be misrepresented. So,
okay. So the four statements in 2 weeks, that was just an error, and the
I don't know. That's something you'll need to speak to the chairman about. My general view on this one is that if they've made mistakes on this, then those mistakes are mistakes that have been taken up with the UKSAA. But with regards to the department, we didn't get any discussion with them on this. This is something they chose to add to their own briefing data, so they have to carry the burden of that responsibility themselves.
This is just an issue there, and there's the same interpretation of data, and it's occurring.
Well, in there, because the data that was published was absolutely correct and accurate by us, and I actually had not referred to it in that way at all when I actually saw it.
Can I then move on, if that's all right? This is related, although it may not sound as though it is to start with. But a former JCP advisor with over 18 years' experience across Manchester job centres has told me that benefit claimants are being deliberately set up to fail in order to sanction quotas without regard to natural justice or their welfare, and that this is contrary to the Civil Service Code. He says he's tried to raise this issue with managers at all levels, including with Neil Cooling and even the whistleblower helpline, but each time it's been rebuffed. He told me the ploys that are used include making appointments for claimants without telling them, so they are marked as no-shows, and it is times they don't attend within the 5 days grace period, and so that they're automatically sanctioned. Now, we know that 5% of JSA claimants are sanctioned every month, and this has escalated since the end of last year when the new sanction regime was brought in. But the informant believes that this is only the start, and this is distorting statistics. So this is something that we're hearing, that there is a distortion of statistics after they're published. What he's saying is there's distortion of statistics as data is being collected. So, first of all, were you aware of this?
Well, I'm not aware of that, and I have to say that I would like to see his evidence for that. And he's making, if he's making that, with respect, he's making an allegation about some of the incredible hard work that job advisors do.
And he was one of them.
Well, maybe he was, but there's always one or two people that have a different view operating in an organisation. I happen to believe, unless it's shown to the contrary, that people who work in the job centres do so, do a very good job. They work very hard, and they apply sanctions within the rules. And I've spoken to Neil Cooling on this on a number of occasions. He's looked at almost all the allegations that come through, and at every occasion he said he cannot find a reason to doubt the fact that people are operating in exactly the right manner. Now, if there is an allegation that has a scintilla of truth in it, then we will investigate it, and if anybody is being found to be doing this... I have no problem with meeting any informant, but Neil Cooling is the man that should meet him first, and I'm very happy to talk to him.
And as I say, completely rebuffed at every stage of management, going against the Civil Service Code, in terms of the distortion, the deliberate distortion of data.
Okay, but we all, with respect, this is a huge organisation. It employs tens of thousands of people around the country who every day go into their job.
To come forward, Minister.
But I don't see why anyone should be frightened to come forward, because nothing's going to happen to them if they come forward and tell us that there is an issue, if such an issue exists. But my point is that you're giving me one individual in an organisation of many tens of thousands of people around the country. When I visit all these organisations, what I observe most of the time is that they actually do an incredibly good job in very difficult circumstances. So yes, if he's got an issue to raise, and if he thinks it's a problem both in the way that he was working, but maybe if it's endemic, then we want to know about it. But we investigate all of this, and Neil Cooling will do that, because it is his job to front up to all of that.
My final question, with the debacle of Universal Credit and this, do you really feel that you're in control of your department?
Yes, I do, and there's no debacle on Universal Credit, and this, you've given me one issue that you've raised.
One issue which is affecting
you've raised
millions of
one
people.
Individual as a case, and we had this with respect on the statistics, but I keep coming back